All right, welcome everyone. This is Summer Bach, and we're here for Guts and Glory. I have Stephen Wright today, which I am so excited to chat with you. We met last year, and I've had such a blast hanging out with you. But what I'm really excited about is the fact that you are a health engineer. How cool is that? And a digestive health author. Steve has overcome extreme IBS, acne, asthma, 60 pounds of weight gain, and hormone issues, which is pretty awesome. He's passionate about poop. You're in the right place, buddy.
Yes.
Personal development is a big thing for him, and helping those who are looking to solve the root issues behind their health complaints. And he lives in Boulder, Colorado, and acts like a metro hippie when he's not working on well-being or businesses. I can't wait to hear more about that.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Summer. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm so excited. I think that this is something that so many people who are watching this are looking to hear about, because I know what you're up to. I know all about the programs and the stuff that you do, and I'm just totally excited to share this information with all the people watching, because I know you guys are going to totally freak out when you see what it is that he has been working on for many years now. So you are like, solving leaky gut is a big part of what you do, right? Like,
yes.
Pretty straightforward in a lot of ways, but most people don't really know what that is. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your definition of leaky gut and what people would be experiencing if they have it.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of people start with gut issues and they focus in on the symptoms, and it could be constipation, diarrhea, bloating, gas, any of these things. And it's important to obviously track those symptoms, and if they're strong enough, they're affecting your quality of life enough, definitely take measures to maybe normalize stools or get rid of bloating or whatnot so you can go about your daily life. But typically those measures in which we take in the short run to get rid of the pain don't actually address any of the root causes behind what's sort of causing the symptoms. And so what I'm really passionate about is, number one, stopping those symptoms, because I used to have both, all that stuff. I basically had all kinds of digestive issues. And I know how much it sucks when it's just really hard to like be happy and be a good person when your stomach's just like kicking you all day long. So leaky gut is, something that's been around since the 1980s. Unfortunately, it hasn't been talked about enough. The research has been, going on that whole time, but nobody's really publicizing it or talking about it. And I think that's very unfortunate, because what happens in a lot of autoimmune conditions, food sensitivities, migraines, any of the digestive symptoms we just talked about, a lot of times what's happening is the gut barrier is broken down. And there's like 19 plus triggers that can sort of erode the gut barrier. But leaky gut in and of itself, what it essentially is where the cells in your gut are one layer thick. So our skin is actually 7 layers. Our gut is way more fragile. It's only 1 layer. And those cells can get separated. And then instead of nutrients and toxins and anything going between or through the cells, they'll actually end up going between the cells unchecked. And so that's a problem because they have direct access to your blood system right from there. And so your immune system has got your back, even if you have autoimmunity, if you have food sensitivities, if you're having any of those issues. I really believe that your body still has got your back. And the reason why is because you're experiencing those symptoms because these particles, it could be food, it could be toxins, bacteria, it can even be like probiotics that you're taking or fermented foods you might be taking if your gut cells are separated enough. And they cross into the bloodstream, and then the immune system just goes, boom, red alert, and starts attacking them, as it should, to save your life. But unfortunately, then we experience a lot of symptoms, from migraines to joints to any sort of issue out there. And so leaky gut, really chronic leaky gut, is what I'm trying to get the message out about and really trying to get people to repair. Because the fascinating thing that also isn't being talked about with the gut is that it is like infinitely intelligent. It will actually open and close the space between those cells in a healthy person on a regular basis based on your environment. So sometimes if you're exercising really hardcore and it's hot out, your cells will actually separate to help cool your body down. So the body's like infinitely intelligent. What we want is those joints and those cells doing what they're supposed to do and not getting stuck open. And unfortunately, in most chronic disease states, they're stuck open.
You know, I can totally relate to that whole leaky gut situation. I know for myself, I had in the worst place I was at with my health, I had multiple chemical sensitivity. I had panic attacks 3 to 5 times a week. I was down to about 20 to 30 foods that I could eat without having a reaction. And I say 20 to 30 because there was some of those that sometimes I would react to and sometimes I wouldn't. I had severe anxiety, rashes and acne, and it was just like, it was crazy. I was digestively, compromised, was bloated and all of these things. And that's how I got into this whole world, right? But, it totally, in some ways, it's actually really the concept of leaky gut is disturbing. That you have this relationship with your external environment. You eat some food, it goes into your gut, and you're having a relationship with that food, and you're interacting very intimately with it. But you kind of want to be in charge of how that relationship goes, And all of a sudden, it's just like this food is leaking out into your bloodstream, circulating through your liver. And I mean, in my experience, it was what ended up causing most of the anxiety, right? And all of these other like symptoms that were just like mood swings and all of this other stuff. It just felt like I was overstimulated all the time, and it was so uncomfortable. Were you having experiences like that at all? I mean, what was your experience like when you were going through this?
Yeah, definitely. I had random food sensitivities I no longer have, like dairy, different foods that are typically thought of as more reactive, corn as well. I no longer react to it. I actually started getting panic attacks as well when I was at my sickest point. I had exercise-induced asthma that was decently bad. It was getting annoying. I had to use my inhaler like at the gym all the time, and I had really bad acne. I had a pizza face. So there's several before and after shots I typically show, and I lost some of the 60 pounds, but I just couldn't get it off. And it was so annoying. And it was so, the worst part about it was that I was really bought into the real food diet movement and the specific carbohydrate diet and whatever diet you choose, as long as it's real food. I'm not, too hung up on that, but I thought it was all about that and sort of just some basic supplementation, and that's how I was going to solve all these issues. But I just got to a plateau and I never went any further with my health. And here I was spending all the money I could on high quality proteins that were like pasture raised and sustainably harvested and all the organic veggies and making my own fermented foods. And it just wasn't happening. I was just stuck. And it wasn't until I kind of really got in there, got some GI testing done, found out that I had H. pylori, I had Indolamax nana and Candida overgrowth. I had a bunch of adrenal fatigue and estrogen dominance. I had all these issues that had kind of cropped up over time, but all those things were basically colluding together to make my gut permeable all the time. And no amount of food was going to fix it. Now, if I would have been eating a worse diet, I definitely could have got sicker, and I wouldn't have been as far along in the past. So yeah, I totally relate to those people, and my heart breaks when I hear about somebody who's been doing like 5 years of fermented foods and real food, and they're just like, I'm starting to give up. Like, I just don't know if this lifestyle is for me. It costs a lot of money, and I expected better returns. And so those are the people that I really want to reach out to, because they're already taking charge of their health. They're already trying so hard to get better. So yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people like that watching. I mean, because so many people that I work with have been eating a clean diet for years, and I think that this concept around leaky gut, I mean, we've talked about it and it's somewhat addressed in my gut rebuilding program, but not specifically, right? Like in gut rebuilding, we're kind of like creating a generalized foundation for people to like have amazing health, like considering the gut is the seat of your health, right? But then when it comes to this very specific health concern of leaky gut, we don't go deep there. And you guys go so deep in this area and have this amazing program. Actually, you have a really cool webinar that talks a lot about it. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I want people to be able to check out this webinar and get more information. So you can actually find that here. So check that out, but tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so look, I'm electrical engineering. That's what I went to school for. And then I had this health crisis and just got pissed off because like 6 different doctors basically told me back when I was having all those issues, you're not sick enough for us to really spend time with. And luckily, my good friend Jordan, business partner and best friend in the world, well, not luckily, but he was basically dying of celiac disease at the time, and gluten-free wasn't working for him. And it wasn't until an osteopath who was very alternative-minded got him started that he told me about the diet that he was on, and it kind of empowered me. Like, oh, wow, like, this is just a problem. I've been trained to solve problems. I can do something about this. And so solving leaky gut is a very technical topic. The gut is super technical. New research, thousands of PubMed studies roll out every month on the gut. I mean, it's like the hottest topic. It will be the hottest topic for the next 2 years, in my opinion. And so, number one, I'm not that qualified to like dive deep into the research. So we hired 3 researchers and worked with them over several months. And then we partnered with Dr. Tom O'Brien to sort of create the Solving Leaky Gut product. And the webinar is sort of the high-level overview. If you're someone who's still a little curious, like more about the science, like how would hormones tie into the gut, how would infections tie into the gut, we walk through that. If there's a lot of predictors from the research. For instance, Dr. Alessio Fasano has done a lot of research on gluten as well as autoimmunity. And right now, it's the conventionally accepted paradigm that you can't have an autoimmune disease without first having leaky gut. So you have environmental triggers, then you have leaky gut, and then you begin the autoimmune process. And so we kind of walk through that, and based on that research, we developed a quiz that can kind of give you like a low risk, high risk sort of indication. So you'll find out about that. And then we sort of walk through like what's the big picture about leaky gut. And of course, I can't teach everything in an hour because inside Solving Leaky Gut, Jordan and I taught 9 hours ourselves, and then we brought in Dr. Tom, some of these researchers I mentioned, some of the best experts around the world. We have like 17 interviews where the interviews are not like summits, not that summits don't give great information, but it was literally Jordan and I trying to like take these experts as nerdy as possible and really make them like divulge the science, because again, it's not really my place to teach all the nitty-gritty science. It's sort of, in my opinion, my place to get it out to the world, to get it out to people. And so the webinar kind of covers all that, and yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I personally believe if you go through the webinar and you read the free content on the website, you're going to know more than 99.9% of all health practitioners out there about leaky gut, which is me bragging a little bit, but it's also kind of pathetic. And so, if we get a more really intelligent, patient population and client population, these doctors and these practitioners are going to have to start, getting the knowledge somewhere. And so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if, everybody here listening, like when you can actually go learn this information about these studies and reference these to your practitioner, it changes things quickly for them. I mean, that's one of the best things that you can sometimes arm yourself with when you're, some people are trying to get some of this figured out with insurance and all these different things, and, it's not the end of the world to try that, you can do it, but you just have to arm yourself in the right way with the right knowledge and walk in with your notepad ready to share. And I just think that's brilliant that you're sharing this information with people. But I think what's really cool is that you can actually, like, I've been behind the scenes in your Solving Leaky Gut program. I mean, it is so comprehensive and it is really easy to understand. And there's all these videos, which is really cool. I always love watching videos of people teaching and talking. It just makes things easier to understand. But not only that, you have like these amazing handouts with it. So it's like videos, handouts. It's like whatever way is your learning style, it doesn't matter. Like you're going to get it covered. And I think that was something that really stood out to me. And so like you saying that it's just important for you to get this information out to people, and that's kind of what your role is, that is clear in the way that you guys have presented it. So, I mean, congrats on that.
Thank you.
It's super good.
Yeah. I mean, I think really when Jordan and I boiled down what our goal was with the course is that I don't do it anymore, but I used to work with clients, one-on-one for about 18 months with doing some consulting at a high level for advanced GI stuff and functional medicine stuff. And what became really clear was we had a 3-month wait list and we sort of shut it down, was that we just couldn't serve the world in a big enough capacity one-to-one. And what we kept seeing over and over again, and what we had experienced years before that, spending over $30K myself with different types of practitioners, was that there's several steps that are now available for any person or patient, however you want to say it, to get handled before they really pony up and pay like out of pocket for functional medicine. People so most of the best practitioners, in my opinion, I haven't met too many of the best ones who accept insurance, unfortunately. And so it's costly when you start to work with them. And so one of our biggest goals was with the product and with Solving Leaky Gut and the work we do is how can we get someone really close and sort of take away those first 2 to 3 appointments that you'd have with a functional medicine provider, because you can do those on your own because it's really basic. It starts off really basic. It gets much more complex. But if you walk into the office with all your knowledge of leaky gut, you've done the Solving Leaky Gut program, it's going to be like a 1 or 2, maybe 3 appointment process with a functional medicine provider. Because at that point, they're going to be in there kind of tweaking your genetics. They're going to be maybe, tweaking some very specific hormone protocols that only a practitioner can do one-on-one with you. They might be tweaking a very specific gut infection that, again, you have to work with someone because there's just a lot of things that can vary in the treatment of those types of things. And so that's really one of the big hopes for this program, is that we can just speed that whole conversation along. And so the people who are working one-on-one are really giving their best gifts as well. They're not spending as much time on the stuff that can be handled without them.
That's amazing. So you're basically saving people $30,000 by teaching them this information. And then I guess also what you just said is really brilliant to me. I have this concept that the healers need to be the healers and the doctors need to be the doctors, right? Because we have this general consensus that people are like, doctors need to learn nutrition and doctors need to learn how to do all this preventative stuff and doctors need to sit there and meet with you for 45 minutes a session. And I actually just don't think that's true. I think you just let them do their job, letting them do their job, do what they do best, do what they were trained to do, but fill in this giant gap of preventative care, fill in this giant gap of education and information so that people can actually do what needs to get done. So when they do show up at the door of their doctor or their functional medicine practitioner, that they are doing what they were highly specifically trained to do that others weren't.
Yeah, I think you're right on. And I think that's the only way it's going to work if the insurance model is going to stay around. And I think both you and I know that that's not changing in the near term. So
I wish.
We can wish, but I think in the best, you have to be the most educated patient you can be. And yeah, I mean, I used to walk, one thing I told all my clients, when I tell everybody I'm telling you right now, I print off 2 sheets of paper and I do it so it's not handwritten, so there's no excuses. And it's all my questions that I want the practitioner to answer, and it's any tests that I want them to order for me, and it's any medications or anything I want to talk about, because I know they're probably going to recommend one thing and I want to know about the alternatives. And so, when you can walk into a doctor's office and sort of just not only be a very professional patient, but also be prepared to make their job easier, then they respect you. Because I've also done it the other way, and I've been kind of pompous and try to fight back, and you don't get what you want, and it's a really bad experience. So like you said, if you can really respect them but also respect yourself and say, this is what I'm here to do, let's chat, I think that works really well.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. That's very, very cool. Well, I guess I have a few more questions too about leaky gut stuff.
Yeah.
So when people are really worried about leaky gut, are they going to have to go on a special diet in order to heal this?
Yeah. So, yes, they are. But it's a temporary diet. So again, what we need to remember is that day by day, your gut is changing. Every meal, every time you travel, the environment you're in, your gut microbiome is changing relative to what it's getting fed. And so there's different types of foods that sort of support the gut, which you talk about all the time. And there's foods that potentially destroy the gut, especially if you are subject to autoimmune issues like gluten and grains and things like that. And so my point of view is that we need to remove any offenders that are constantly getting through the gut. So if like corn and dairy were issues for me, along with grains and everything else, industrial seed oils. So get rid of any potential inflammatory foods. Also pull out anything that, some people can react to kale and beef. And it's not like kale and beef are inherently reactive and inflammatory. They're not. But if you've eaten it regularly and you have chronic leaky gut, unfortunately, that pattern is just that some molecules are going to make it in the bloodstream, and now you have a sensitivity. And so if you can calm the immune system down at the same time you're healing the gut walls, that's going to be how to do it. And then, my point of view on diets and whatnot and our relationship with food is, okay, let's restrict it to where we need to get it to heal. And then as we heal, let's expand it back out as fast as we can without any sort of regression in health. And go as far as you personally want to and your lifestyle allows. I personally don't really care if someone eats grains or doesn't eat grains, unless they're coming to me and saying, hey, my health is bad, and I'm not willing to stop eating grains. And I'm like, well, we disagree on what your highest value is. But, after that, I think everybody should create their own custom diet. I have a Steve diet. You have your summer diet. And that's kind of what I tell people, what diet do you eat? Well, it looks kind of like a paleo diet, but it's really a Steve diet. And I know it works for me. And so that's what I hope for everybody who has these health conditions, is that they're willing to change their diet for a shortened time period. Some people do it for 3 months. Some people it's longer, 6 to 9 to 12 months. But in general, get back out there, add the foods back in. Don't necessarily stay restricted just because that's what worked in the beginning to help you feel better.
Okay, I have a very specific question. Do you guys ever talk about bone broth?
So the bone broth is in the course, but just barely. The reason why we didn't talk about it too much is that we're asking people to make a lot of changes really quickly. And so what in my bio, I put personal development in there because I'm just fascinated by psychology and why I do things that I do, which a lot of times are dumb and they hurt me, and a lot of times they're fun and simple things like that. And so I've been fascinated with sort of how can I encourage and inspire more people to take actions. And the reality is the more layers of change that we're trying to do at one time, the higher probability we're going to fail in our goal. And so in the course, we chose not to use a whole bunch of fermented foods and bone broths because we didn't discourage them. We just chose not to focus on them because we thought it was enough for them to focus just on reducing stress, the different diet and the different diet plans they'd be eating there, as well as some of the other things you have to remove with leaky gut. And so it wasn't an exclusion based on, I think they're extremely helpful. It was just like, okay, how can we simplify this down so people don't just drop out because they're like, shoot, I got to make homemade this, homemade that, plus these supplements, plus this specific stress reduction stuff, and I noticed myself, like I have like journals filled with, I'm going to do all these things tomorrow or January 1st, and then nothing happens.
That's awesome. Well, that's brilliant, I think, because I think what you've highlighted here that's so important is that, bone broth isn't the magic bullet. Like, you can heal leaky gut without focusing on that. And there's all these other components to it that are maybe more important than just like sipping on bone broth every few hours, which I think people get really hung up on.
Yeah. Nothing's wrong with bone broth. I think it's great, but I think it is a complete fallacy that some people are purporting that you could heal leaky gut only with bone broth. The reality is if you ate the bone broth from the same specific farm all week long and you have chronic leaky gut, you actually can start making antibodies and immune reactions to even what's in that bone broth. And so it's just, it's all about removing those things that are currently triggering leaky gut and healing up any old wounds that would have started the leaky gut. And bone broth is great for that healing protocol, but there's lots of ways to get the job done.
Yeah, I was allergic to beef and salmon when I was at my worst for that exact reason. You know, it was like, beef? What? How am I allergic to beef?
Yeah, and you know what? Unfortunately, even when I was early on, you know, this is about year 6 for me as far as teaching this stuff, and year 7 or 8 for working on my own health. I was like, there's no way someone could react to beef. But I didn't know about leaky gut, and I didn't understand the immune system the way I do now. And the immune system has no cares for what you think and how beautiful that food was or how tasty it was when you put it in. If that molecule is getting in the bloodstream and it didn't pass through the right channels, it's a foreign invader and it's going down.
And that's basically what's happening, right? It's like you eat this thing, and what you said, like if you were doing bone broth, just as an example, every day, and you have leaky gut, as those proteins pass through the leaks in the intestinal wall and go right into the bloodstream, the body identifies those as foreign invaders and then starts tagging them with antibodies. And then so every time you eat it after a certain point in time, that will start to trigger an immune response. What's fascinating to me is this connection between autoimmunity and the gut. And I've looked into this a ton, and the connection is clear. But I'd love to hear you speak to that, because so many people that are coming here watching this are dealing with Hashimoto's, are dealing with like celiac, and dealing with a lot of autoimmune issues. We have people who have MS, and even like, I don't know if you consider rosacea a sort of autoimmune disorder, but we get a lot of that coming through here. And so people are getting relief from their symptoms, but I want to make this connection even deeper, because I think like to actually completely reverse an autoimmune disease, can you do that with leaky gut? And can you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So to be perfectly honest, no one knows whether you can actually reverse an autoimmune disease. And the word cure and reverse is a definition that every individual needs to decide upon for themselves. But what I think is possible, and what I've seen be possible, is that any type of autoimmune. So let's start with one level higher. Every autoimmune disease that's been tested for the presence of leaky gut, or leaky gut being part of the process, it's been true. Not every autoimmune disease has been tested yet, and also people are still sort of coding autoimmune diseases. You know, you ask one website, you know, one government agency, they say 60. Another government agency says 120. Some people are saying 150 that are researchers. So, you know, who knows? All we know is that the immune system's out of whack. And my personal take on it, this is just my personal take at this moment, is that we all have genetic weak links. In my family, it's stroke and cancer. And there's not a whole lot of autoimmunity. But autoimmunity, we do know, runs in families. And so what I think is happening is that in leaky gut, or in gut health, essentially that attack happens in the gut. You create local inflammation. We know this to be true. So local inflammation happens when you attack those molecules that got into your bloodstream that should have gone through a different way to get into the body, or not gotten in at all. That then cascades out and creates systemic inflammation. So it begins, the chemical messengers of inflammation travel everywhere. And so wherever you're sort of nutrient deficient, or you're genetically weak, just based on your epigenetics and the cards that you were born with, that inflammation seems to target, that systemic inflammation seems to go and activate, and then it causes, RA in somebody who's 30. Depression, the inflammation depression theory hypothesis is extremely strong at this point, that a whole lot of depression is inflammation in the brain. And where does that come from? Well, a lot of it originates in the gut. Rosacea, the acne problems, all this stuff, It just appears that that was a link in your body that was sort of weaker, and so that's where the inflammation takes or manifests symptoms first. Personally, what I've seen is that through going through a process like solving leaky gut and working with functional medicine providers, doing stuff like what you talk about all the time, Summer, people can have an autoimmune condition, they can have a disappearance of symptoms, and their lab work will show that they appear completely healthy and normal. Now, does that mean that it's reversed or cured? You know, there's all kinds of theories about how long the antibodies stick around. Some researchers contradict each other. You know, it's 6 months, it's 10 years. I think the honest truth is no one knows yet, and we're not going to know for a few more years. But personally, if I had to eat a semi-special diet and I displayed absolutely no immune system dysregulation and no symptomology, I would consider myself having a pretty awesome life if I once had Hashimoto's or something like that. And so that's for instance Jordan's story. So he had celiac disease, full villus atrophy, which the villi are the little fingers in your small intestine that are so important for all kinds of different ways of digestion. His were flat, like gone. Like he has pictures just splayed off. He hasn't gotten pictures retaken, but all of his immune markers are fine. His health is good. He's gained back 60 pounds. And so is he ever going to eat wheat again? You can guarantee he won't.
No.
You can guarantee he won't. But, I mean, who knows? Who knows?
I'm the same way. People ask me, I've been gluten-free for 13 years. And
wow.
People are like, wow, is that hard? I'm like, no. It isn't. I mean, it was definitely hard at first to be like, oh, I can't have that brownie. Oh, I can't have that bagel. Oh, I can't have pizza. Oh, I definitely went through the stage for quite a while. But even then, I could. There was a period where I went without it for like a few months, and then I was like, okay, whatever. And I literally had a brownie and a bagel. And for the next 2 days, I felt like I wanted to pull my skin off and crawl outside of it. I felt like itchy, but not itchy, like on the inside. And I was so uncomfortable. It was the grossest feeling. And it was the only way I was able to experience it so deeply is because of that time separation without it. And it was such a moment for me. I was like, wow, I'm never touching that stuff again. Like I can't. And I've definitely gotten gluten poisoned, over the years. Like it definitely has happened, and I can feel it. I wake up the next day and I feel slightly hungover. I crave some sort of stimulation or like love or comfort, or I don't know. I just feel like ugh. Yeah. And it's not hard anymore because once you've really figured out what isn't working for your body, I think you can get over needing it. If you know that the alternative is feeling awesome. And I think that's just worth speaking to with a lot of people listening to this, because this is like such the world of people who may have to be considerate of their diet for the rest of their lives on some level.
Yeah, I mean, what you're speaking to is not spoken about enough, and it's something I feel very strongly about, which is that there's a lot of psychological growth and change that needs to happen along with the physiological stuff that we do to heal ourselves. I know for myself, for a long time, even up till a year ago or so, I really thought maybe my digestion, which has been bad since birth, was sort of like a weak link, and I didn't have any love for it. And in my body, I just thought it was kind of weak, and now I have to eat this special way. And the reality is that I'm still here. I'm a tip of the spear of evolution for my genetics, and in this amazing day and age that we have right now, I figured out how to eat and take care of my body, in which I feel absolutely amazing. And so I've totally been through the ums and ahs, and fortunately so far I don't have any autoimmune diagnosis. And like, for instance, if I get gluten or if those Christmas cookies win the battle over me, I don't feel it right away. But if I do it twice, like in the same day, then I feel it for sure. And so I guess what I just want to say there is that I just have so much love and support for the people who struggle with like overeating. I've been there. I've consumed whole bags of M&Ms. And I think that's a huge part that's not being talked about, because as we go on these diets, there's a way of sort of looking at it as self-pity, and then there's another way of looking at it where it's like fun. It's like, oh, really? So you think you can't have a delicious meal with just chicken and sweet potatoes and asparagus? Because if you throw some herbs in there and you learn a few cooking techniques, you can blow the doors off of even most restaurants. And so I think if that's the only thing that's gotten me this far, is just adopting like, hey, what's right about this? Like, what could be fun about this? Even though it's counterculture and it's different than what your family does and things like that. And so I hope maybe that can help. And I've also written about that some on our blog. But I'm definitely not sort of a eating disorder specialist, so I should probably stop talking there.
That's awesome, though. I think that's, yeah, you're right. That's a big part of this process, and getting that kind of support is imperative. Okay, so I want to remind everybody to go check out this awesome webinar to get more information and just get a chance to learn more from you and learn more from your colleagues and all of this information that you put together, especially if any of this is resonating, because I know it is for me. I love this. Like, this topic of just being this educated and informed about your body and your health. And like the consequences, I think, are that you do get to have fun and you do get to feel good. And that's something that I can see it in you. I mean, you look so happy, and I know you're hilarious to be around. And like, I can guarantee you, if you were just like 60 pounds heavier and covered in acne, you're not going to be feeling as much of that. Like, sometimes you can feel it still through that, but not on the same level. And your ability, once you like shed all that toxicity, your ability to connect with other humans, it increases dramatically. And I think that that's ultimately what we really need, is like, back to that psychology piece, we need that human connection. So I do appreciate you offering that for people, like in all the different ways through this program. I have one last question for you. You talked about stress. Yeah. What do you do for stress relief and for fun? Like, what's your thing?
So stress relief, I try to journal every day. I try to meditate often, but I don't still, it's not like a specific habit. I did do a 10-day Vipassana retreat, which I highly recommend. I wish everybody in civilization would do one of those.
Me too.
If my big excuse before I did this, which was only 6 months ago, was I didn't know how to meditate. And so I would sit down, and of course I would listen to guided meditations, and I would try different things, but it just never felt like I was doing it adequately. I didn't understand what I should be getting out of it and what should be happening. And it wasn't until I went through an experiential 10 days like that, that the Vipassana Association puts you through, that you really learn about meditation. I mean, you meditate basically 120 hours in 10 days. So you get it. Yeah.
I've been there twice.
Have you? Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's it's in the top 5 list of hardest things I've ever done, and in the top 5 list of things that I think have totally, utterly changed the course of my life.
Yes.
Anyway,
I'll be back
to you.
this year.
Yeah, I interrupted though. You had a few more things. What else do you do for fun?
So one more thing, gratitude. So every night before I go to bed, I try to get extremely grateful for 3 things or 3 people that happened that day, no matter how stressful the day was or how upset I am. And that really helps me manage my stress. But the other thing is just playing. I just try to have some fun, whether it's getting out and playing Frisbee or going for a walk and just like smiling at a bunch of people. You speak to it a lot about like this human connection. I feel like it's really missing in our society these days. And so I really try to get out and play with other humans and just, walk around. I ski, golf, basically do any sport that somebody will play with me. Love ping pong.
Awesome. I have a mental note.
Yeah, and I just do my Metro hippie thing. So, when I'm, I still shower, and but I do go to yoga classes, and I do meditate, and I like soft music and candles, and, chilling down.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, you're a riot. Okay, everyone, I just want to say this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Steve, for being here. This is really
Thank you.
valuable information, and it's definitely helped me, and I'm just appreciating that everyone watching is going to get a chance to get something from this as well. So I guess
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Everyone, this is Summer Bach and Steve signing out.